Still in South Africa, High Court has found that the cutting of electricity supply to public facilities, schools and police stations constitutes an infringement of constitutional rights. The High Court in Pretoria has given the government 60 days to find a way to keep the lights in these key public facilities. This order is an interim one, and the court has yet to hear the full application brought by 19 applicants, including political parties, unions and social activists. This judgment is one of the most significant rulings against the South African government and its management of the country's electricity supply. Now, joining us to discuss this further is South African journalist and editor Dianne Hawker. She joins us live from Cape Town. Hi, good evening to you, Dianne. Nice to have you on NC Continental Prime.
Good evening, Gbenga, and good evening to the viewers.
Now, Dianne, there are almost 20 litigants involved in this case from various backgrounds. How did so many organizations come together in one case against the government?
Well, the case was actually initially brought by a number of political parties and key organizations such as unions. But as the case unfolded, more and more applicants joined the case. So amongst the people who are involved in the case are opposition parties like the UDM, the IFP, the Democratic Alliance, Action SA, Build One South Africa, which is one of the newer political parties to join the scene, along with the South African Federation of Trade Unions and the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa. So you can see it's quite a large cross-section of organizations. There's even some property and neighborhood organizations which joined this case. There was more than one case, and the court decided to combine these matters into one because the issues being brought were actually the same issues.
Now, Dianne, one of the things that the court found was that there is a prima facie right to supply of electricity, especially at these key institutions. What is the implication of this?
Absolutely. I think it is the first indication from the courts that they will accept that access to electricity can be considered a human rights. Now, these organizations actually focused on issues of healthcare, safety, and education because the South African Constitution already recognizes that citizens have the right to all of these, and these rights are ultimately being affected by the lack of consistent electricity supply. So, for example, the fact that people are not able to get consistent electricity supply at hospitals ultimately infringes on their right to access to healthcare. The same when it comes to safety and the same when it comes to education, because these institutions, like many households, are negatively impacted by electricity. The case has actually been split into more than one part. So this was the first part that was dealt on an interim basis. And in the bigger case, the longer case, these organizations intend to argue that outside of health, education, and safety, that there is a right to electricity supply by the government, and that the government has a responsibility to ensure that South Africans have a consistent electricity supply, as well as a good plan as to how they will revitalize the country's electricity supply.
Now, talking about the electricity supply of the country, it's not just the institutions that suffer from load shedding. Load shedding, the way it works is it's implemented in blocks. How will the government manage implementation of this?
Absolutely. I mean, where I am right now, the block has gone off. So I'm lighting this live with two small portable lights. And luckily, there's also backup in the internet. When it comes to the way that load shedding is implemented, usually it will go, neighborhood by neighborhood. And if a school or police station or hospital is within that neighborhood, it will be put off along with all of the other buildings in that area. Now, the court is aware it's not exempted at this point. But what the court said is that the government needs to find a way to either exempt these institutions or to make sure that they have enough backup power to make sure that they remain on when the rest of the neighborhood is off. And that's quite significant because ultimately, if the government has to buy backup generation for all the hospitals, all the schools, and all the police stations, which they haven't done up until this point, there will be a significant cost for the government to ensure that that happens. And the court has given them 60 days to implement that part of the court order.
Thank you very much, Dianne Hawker, as always, for your insights and contribution.
Thank you.